Brittney Griner thought her controversial comments about Caitlin Clark would fade away like they always do. But this time, everything changed when Indiana Governor Mike Braun dropped a major bombshell that has the entire WNBA scrambling. While the league rushed to investigate questionable claims against Fever fans, it stayed silent on serious concerns surrounding Griner's viral video, fueling accusations of a clear double standard. Now, with political pressure rapidly building, someone with real authority has stepped in and exposed what many believe is bias, shifting the spotlight directly onto the league. Griner, who once seemed untouchable, is suddenly feeling the heat, and the WNBA's usual way of handling controversy may not be enough to contain the fallout this time. As this story continues to unfold with layers of drama, tension, and major consequences.
She accused the Indiana Fever fan base of being racist. They investigated it. They said those accusations were false. The least that she could do is apologize to our great state and the fans that show up at these games and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Obviously, she's not going to do that. But also, Dan, why isn't the Indiana Fever apologizing to their own fan base for putting them through that, for going through those types of accusations? I mean, those are awful accusations. They weren't true. The fans weren't shouting racial slurs toward Angel Reese or opposing players. I mean, where is Caitlin Clark? Where is the Indiana Fever? Where is the WNBA saying that investigation there shouldn't have been an investigation? The allegations were false. Where's the apology? It hasn't happened. It's disappointing. As someone who is, my daughters are fans of the team. They've gone to games to see Caitlin Clark. It's so demeaning to our state and to the fan base to go through something like that. The least they can do.
The WNBA poured time and resources into investigating claims that Fever fans directed hateful comments at Angel Reese after a 30-point loss, only to later admit those allegations weren't substantiated. But here's where the controversy deepens. They moved quickly to address what turned out to be questionable accusations, while largely staying silent on a viral video of Brittney Griner that has millions of viewers convinced she made disrespectful remarks about Caitlin Clark, fueling growing criticism over what many see as inconsistent priorities and a possible double standard within the league.
Everyone deserves the right to play. Everyone deserves the right to come here, sit in these seats, and feel safe and not feel like there's a threat or they can't be who they are. Definitely will be speaking up against that legislation and those laws that are trying to be passed, for sure.
The hypocrisy feels impossible to ignore. It's almost painful to watch. The WNBA is quick to investigate claims that don't even hold up. Yet when there's widely circulated footage suggesting potentially questionable behavior from one of its own stars, the response suddenly goes quiet. To many, it looks like selective attention, calling out issues only when they fit a certain narrative. That's exactly what Governor Mike Braun appeared to highlight, and he did it in a measured but pointed way. When he said, I think if there was some look into what Angel Reese did, I think it would be good to put that to rest as well. It wasn't just a casual remark. It was a clear signal that the league's handling of these situations is being closely watched, and that perceived inconsistencies aren't going unnoticed.
Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever are the best gift that the WNBA has ever had. I mean, and the fans that show up and pack that place, I mean, sell out crowds every time Caitlin Clark plays. It's so great for Indiana, but it's good for the WNBA. But how dare you accuse our fans, the Hoosiers that show up at these games, being racist when they're not? I mean, that was an opposing player who hates Caitlin Clark. Frankly, it's a great rivalry for the teams and for the sport. But don't accuse our fans of being racist. I mean, that's the kind of garbage that gets thrown around all the time. It wasn't true. The investigation proved it, and there was no outcome of it. There was no apology. Apologize to the fans. I mean, that's a simple thing to do, and I wish the team would have been more emphatic about that. Stand up, stick up for your fan base. I mean, that's who's keeping you alive. So maybe they'll still do that. I don't know. I mean, I tweeted that Angel Reese should apologize, and my tweet got a lot of reactions, but I'm not going to hold.
The governor didn't hold back. He made it clear he has zero tolerance for bigotry or bullying, emphasizing that when something crosses the line, It needs to be addressed, no matter who is involved. But that's exactly where critics say the WNBA is falling short. According to many, the league only steps in when it suits a certain narrative, choosing who to protect and who to ignore. And that brings us to the viral Brittney Griner video that has everyone talking. The clip quickly spread online, with millions of viewers convinced she directed harsh comments at Caitlin Clark, even interpreting parts as a racial slur. On the other side, her supporters argue she was simply reacting to a referee's decision, calling the play trash and criticizing the call, not Clark. But here's the real issue: the silence. If the comments were clearly about the referee, why hasn't Griner come forward to clarify? Why hasn't the WNBA released an official statement to settle the debate? That lack of response is exactly what's fueling suspicion and keeping this controversy alive. Right now, it's not just the controversy. It's the silence that's grabbing attention. For many, that silence says everything. When unproven claims surfaced about Angel Reese, the WNBA acted immediately, launching an investigation without hesitation. But in a situation where actual footage has raised questions, the response has been noticeably absent. This contrast is exactly why critics are calling out what they see as inconsistency. There's a growing belief that some players are heavily protected, while others are placed under a microscope. Caitlin Clark, for instance, faces constant scrutiny, from her on-court reactions to every small mistake, while situations involving other high-profile players don't seem to get the same level of attention. And then there's the timing, which only adds more intrigue. This controversy erupted right after the Indiana Fever delivered a dominant win over the Chicago Sky, a game where Clark wasn't even on the floor. For some observers, it feels like the focus has quickly shifted away from that one-sided result and onto something far more divisive, keeping the spotlight firmly on off-court drama instead of what happened in the game itself. Out of nowhere, reports of hateful comments from Fever fans suddenly surfaced, giving the league something to focus on, shifting the narrative and, some argue, casting Angel Reese as a victim instead of highlighting a tough loss against a team missing its biggest star. But Governor Mike Braun isn't buying into that narrative. He understands exactly what Caitlin Clark represents to Indiana and the impact she's had on the game across the state. From selling out Gainbridge Fieldhouse like the Indiana Pacers to reigniting excitement at the college and high school levels, Clark's influence goes far beyond the court. That's why, for the governor, this isn't just about basketball. It's about standing up for an athlete who has driven massive attention and economic energy. His call for the negativity toward Clark to end, along with a push for equal treatment, makes it clear that this situation is about fairness, accountability, and how the league chooses to handle both. Critics argue the WNBA has allowed a culture to grow where targeting Caitlin Clark is seen as acceptable, while anyone defending her or her fan base risks being labeled as the problem. Senator Jim Banks has already called on the league to apologize to Fever fans over what he described as a baseless investigation, and now Governor Mike Braun is reinforcing that pressure by pushing for equal treatment when legitimate concerns are raised. These aren't random voices seeking attention. They're elected officials from Indiana who recognize the cultural and economic impact tied to this situation. Their involvement alone sends a strong message, suggesting the issue has reached a level that can't be ignored. For many observers, when concerns about fairness draw the attention of government leaders, it signals a deeper problem within how the league handles controversy. At its core, this debate isn't about politics. It's about consistency, accountability, and applying the same standards to everyone. Meanwhile, the spotlight has also turned toward Brittney Griner, with critics questioning whether high-profile players are shielded from the kind of scrutiny others regularly face, further intensifying the conversation around fairness in the league. Now, for the first time, she may be facing real scrutiny from people outside the WNBA's usual circles who aren't influenced by its internal dynamics. And that's where the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. Critics point out how differently situations are handled. When Caitlin Clark is involved in physical play, the narrative often shifts to questioning her, but when concerns arise about comments directed at her, the response seems far more muted. Yet when claims surface about her fans, even ones that don't hold up, the league reacts instantly and aggressively. This growing gap in response is exactly why calls for a deeper investigation are getting louder. If the kind of review Governor Mike Braun is suggesting actually happens, it could force the league to apply consistent standards across the board, and that's where things could get uncomfortable. Because once evidence is examined equally, long-standing questions about fairness and treatment are likely to resurface. Many believe the real issue here goes beyond any single comment or moment. It's about a broader pattern that, until now, hasn't been seriously challenged. What's really coming into focus for critics isn't just one incident. It's what they see as a deeper flaw in how the WNBA handles investigations. They argue the league moves quickly on questionable claims involving fans, yet appears far less responsive when concerns involve players, creating a perception of uneven standards. That's why Governor Mike Braun's involvement stands out. It brings attention from outside the league and underscores just how significant Caitlin Clark's impact has become. From boosting visibility to driving revenue and fan interest, her influence now stretches beyond basketball. And the fact that public officials are weighing in highlights that reached the same time, the timing adds another layer of pressure, especially for Brittney Griner, who is already navigating public scrutiny. Now, with more eyes on the situation, there's a growing expectation for clarity and accountability. Unlike past moments, this situation is less about framing narratives and more about addressing unanswered questions. And that's what makes it so compelling. Because regardless of where people stand, the demand for consistent standards and transparent responses is becoming harder for the league to ignore. This situation, critics argue, isn't about anyone's personal story or background. It's about alleged comments and how they're being handled. With a widely circulated video at the center of the debate, many believe it's no longer something that can simply be brushed aside or reframed as criticism from outsiders. Instead, the focus has shifted to accountability and clarity. That's what puts the WNBA in a difficult spot. If the league continues to stay silent, it risks growing pressure and further criticism. But if it chooses to investigate now, it may raise questions about why similar concerns weren't addressed earlier. Either way, the situation highlights ongoing concerns about consistency and fairness in how issues are handled. Governor Mike Braun's remarks add another layer to the conversation, especially his point about embracing what Caitlin Clark has brought to the league rather than allowing narratives that seem to undercut her impact. From increased viewership to greater revenue and national attention, Clark's influence is undeniable. And yet, the debate continues, not just about one incident, but about how the league recognizes and responds to the players driving its growth. The involvement of political figures makes it clear this situation has moved beyond just basketball and into something with broader implications. When governors and senators start speaking out, it signals that the issue has reached a level the WNBA can't simply ignore or wait out like past controversies. The pressure now is different. It's public, it's persistent, and it demands a response at the same time. Critics say this moment is exposing a deeper contradiction. The league often promotes messages of fairness and equality, but situations like this are raising questions about whether those principles are applied consistently. From that perspective, true fairness wouldn't depend on who's involved. It would mean addressing every claim with the same urgency, transparency, and standard, no matter the player or circumstance.